Alright, if you thought part 1 was intense, part 2 is where everything flips. This is not just a continuation. This is the moment where the story stops making sense and starts becoming something else entirely. Part 2 title idea. Soo Kai and Tan's Songyun twin story just took a dark turn. Something isn't right. Script, long, higher attention, TDS ready. You stayed. That means you're ready for what most people didn't notice. Because the twin baby story involving Soo Kai and Tan Songyun is no longer just a shocking headline. It's turning into a mystery. And what we uncovered next, it changes everything. But wait, before we go further, I need you to think about one thing. If something this big was real, why is there still no confirmation? No direct statement. No clear denial. Just silence. And as you already know, silence in situations like this is never random. It's controlled. But here's where it gets crazy. A fan just like you decided to go deeper. Not into headlines. Not into rumors. But into something most people ignore. Timing. And what they found doesn't add up. Let me explain. Around the period when this twin baby story supposedly happened, both Soo Kai and Tan Songyun were still appearing in public. Not frequently, but just enough. Enough to create the illusion that everything was normal. But wait, here's where it gets crazy. In some of those appearances, fans noticed something subtle. Angles, camera positioning, loose clothing choices, and limited movement. Now, ask yourself this. Why would two top celebrities suddenly have such carefully controlled appearances at the same time? Coincidence? Or coordination? But that's not even the twist. Because just when fans thought they were onto something, a completely different theory exploded online. What if the twins are real, but they're not what we think? Pause for a second. What does that even mean? Some believe the babies exist, but the story behind them has been altered, changed, rewritten. Not to hide the truth completely, but to protect a deeper one. And now the question becomes even bigger. Protect from what? Or from who? But wait, here's where it gets even more intense. An insider post, quickly deleted, hinted at something unexpected. It didn't mention names directly, but it used words like agreement, timing, and exposure risk. And just like that, everything took a darker turn. Because now, this isn't just about a relationship. This could be about contracts, decisions, and consequences. Now think carefully. In the entertainment industry, how much of what we see is real? And how much is managed? So, let me ask you something. If a story this big had the potential to affect careers, endorsements, or public image, would it be revealed freely? Or carefully controlled? But wait. Here's where it gets crazy again. Another detail surfaced. The timeline of this story overlaps with a major project both stars were involved in. A project that required intense public attention. A project where any unexpected news could either boost it or completely destroy it. So now we're left with a chilling possibility. What if this entire situation is connected to something bigger than just personal life? What if timing wasn't accidental? What if silence was strategy? And what if what we're seeing now is only the version we're allowed to see? Take a moment. Let that sink in. Because the deeper you go into the story, the less it feels like a coincidence. And the more it feels like a perfectly constructed narrative. But we're not done yet. Because there's one final detail that almost no one is talking about. And once you hear it, you won't look at this story the same way again. A pattern. Yes. A pattern that has appeared before in other celebrity stories. Sudden news. No confirmation. Mass speculation. Then silence. And eventually, a completely different truth emerges. So now I'll ask you the question that changes everything. Are we at the beginning of the truth? Or in the middle of a distraction? Because if this follows the same pattern, then what comes next might be the real reveal.
And trust me,
you don't want to miss that. So stay close, because part 3, that's where the truth might finally break through, or where everything we believe gets completely rewritten. Now, ask yourself, why would two global stars like Soo Kai and Tan Songyun stay completely silent on something this massive? Is it strategy? Is it protection? Or is it something else entirely? Because here's where it gets crazy. Within that silence, fans began noticing something deeper. Not just what was missing, but what was being quietly adjusted. Old posts disappearing, clips becoming harder to find, moments that once circulated widely suddenly fading into the background. Coincidence? Or control? Now think carefully. In an industry where image is everything, nothing just disappears without intention. So the question changed again. Not what happened, but what is being hidden? And that's when the timeline theory exploded. Fans started connecting dates.
Not randomly.
But precisely. They mapped appearances, filming schedules, public absences, and what they found didn't add up. There were gaps, small enough to ignore, but big enough to matter. But wait, here's where it gets even more intense. Some fans believe those gaps weren't accidents. They were windows. Windows where something important was happening away from the spotlight. Now, let me ask you something. If you wanted to protect something personal, something life-changing, would you hide it completely? Or would you hide it just enough so no one looks too closely? Because what we're seeing right now feels like the second option. And then came the moment that changed everything again. A resurfaced interview. Not recent, not trending, but suddenly extremely important. In that interview, Songyun spoke about something simple. Privacy. She said, sometimes the most important parts of life should never be shared with the world. At the time, it felt like a normal statement.
Now,
it feels like a clue. But wait, here's where it gets crazy again. What if that wasn't just a statement? What if it was a decision? A line drawn between public life and real life. Now, let's flip this. Because this is where the story becomes unpredictable. Another theory began rising. Not about romance, not about secrets, but about perspective. What if we've been forcing a narrative that was never meant to exist? What if Soo Kai and Songyun are connected, but not in the way fans imagined? Because here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Sometimes, the story fans create is stronger than reality itself. And when reality doesn't match, it creates confusion. Now pause and think. Are we discovering the truth? Or are we rewriting it to fit what we want to believe? Because this next part changes everything again. Another insider voice. Not confirmed, not verified, but impossible to ignore. The claim? The twins might be real, but the connection between them might not be what the internet thinks. Now let that sit for a second. Because if that's true, then what are we actually watching unfold? A hidden relationship? Or a misunderstood story? But wait, it doesn't stop there. Because while fans were focused on this theory, something else slipped through unnoticed.
a shift.
A quiet, almost invisible shift. Career decisions. Schedules changing. Projects being rearranged. Nothing dramatic. Nothing obvious. But enough to raise one chilling question. What if this entire situation is affecting more than just personal lives? What if it's reshaping careers? Because in this industry, image is power, and one unexpected story can change everything. So now we're left with three possibilities.
1,
This is a real, hidden story finally coming to light.
2,
This is a misunderstood situation that the internet has turned into something bigger. Or 3, This is only the surface of something much deeper, something we haven't even discovered yet. So let me ask you directly, which one do you believe? Because whatever your answer is, it says more about how you see the story than the story itself. And here's the most important part. We still don't have confirmation. We still don't have denial. We only have clues, fragments, moments that feel connected but aren't fully explained. And that's what makes this story dangerous. Because the less we know, the more powerful speculation becomes. And speculation can create truths that may not even exist. But wait, before you decide what to believe, there's one final twist you need to hear. Some fans believe this isn't the climax. This is the setup.
yes,
The setup for something bigger, something that hasn't been revealed yet. Because if there's one thing history has shown, It's that the biggest reveal always comes after the silence. So now I'll ask you the question that no one can answer yet. When the truth finally comes out, will it confirm everything? Or destroy everything we thought was true?
Think about that.
And don't answer too quickly, because the next part might not just reveal the truth. It might force you to choose what you believe. Final ending hook, strong retention close. If you've made it this far, then you're already ahead of most people. But here's the real test.
Drop your theory in the comments right now.
Not what everyone is saying, what you actually believe is happening. Because in part 3, we're diving into the one detail no one is talking about. And trust me, that detail might change everything.